Hey, all right, here we go. Happy Saturday, and we're going to, or actually, happy Sunday. Um, we're going to be talking about supply of homes in the villages. I'm Glenn Stein, owner broker, Realty Executives in the Villages, and we're located on 466 across from Laurel Manor, near the corner of Buena Vista and 466. We have a small office towards the Coleman area, south of the Turnpike, south of 44. As the villages keeps growing and growing, it's amazing how many homes are being built. And there is a difference. There's a lot of things going on right now that are on my mind that we're not going to jump into yet, maybe the next couple of months. But obviously, there is a difference between a village's agent and a realtor, and there is a separate set of inventory between what's on MLS and what's on VLS. Realtors on MLS actually only serve resales, and agents that are working with Property Villages will tend to work with new construction and resales as well. 99% of the time, we don't cross. In other words, we don't work with buyers that are buying from the villages and vice versa. That's the typical. Although we're hearing that some agents are willing to show MLS properties. They're really not selling the properties. They're just showing it, and then they're taking their buyers to other places that are listed by the villages. Just kind of FYI. But look at this national stat here. You're looking at this national stat where you're looking at the national supply of homes. There is a difference between 2020 and 2023, looking at 1.3, 1.3, 1.2 in 2022 nationally, like a big drop off in inventory. And wherever you're coming from, wherever you are, you're going to hear realtors or people that are buying complain that there's not enough inventory. There's nothing to buy. There's nothing to buy. They're feeling that way. There is something to buy, just a lot less than what it was in past years. So there's a little bit of a paradox, because this is what we're seeing nationwide. That's the national number, but the real number that we're really concerned with is obviously inventory within our community. What's happening in the villages? What are we seeing inventory wise? And I think, things have changed a little bit, but not dramatically. And it is going to be different than what the rest of the country is seeing. So, for instance, if you look at this, these are MLS numbers, you're looking at over the last 5 years, the active number of listings was well over 300, went to 400 over, 2020, and then took a dramatic dip, as we've talked about in past videos, 2021, 2022, and then a steady climb, big climb up when interest rates went up dramatically. Inventory climbed and pretty much touched 400, and now we've gone significantly lower than 400, and I think we're right at 338 properties. There was a time that we actually went to just under 300 for a minute, then we bounced up again. So we've seen very much a stabilization. Like, if you look at look at this chart here, the typical number, for the last 5 years has been right around the 300 mark. So to be over 400 is abnormal. Of course, with COVID and interest rate jumps here, this is what we're seeing. But I think we're heading more of I think we're going to be in this range between the 350 to 290 range. I think that's where we're going to be for the next several years, which means very much a plateauing of the market, unless we see a big jump. We go to the next level in interest rates, or see something that's really dramatic, which is always possible. We'll see. I don't like to predict such things, because that's basically predicting calamity, and it doesn't make any sense to predict calamity in my mind, right? So this is something else to really look at. Okay, now let's look at something a little bit different. So that's what you're seeing as far as inventory. Inventory is not dropping, has dropped a little bit, as you saw in the last 6 months, but it's pretty much holding steady. So let's look at what's happening with the number of sales. What are we seeing? Because this is going to indicate, it's going to help you determine, okay, should I buy, should I sell, what's going on? This will tell you something here. This particular chart will tell you something. So let's look at the data. This is MLS numbers, right? So actually, let's go back to the chart. The chart basically says, big spikes in 2021, and then, obviously coming back to more of a, below normal number late last year, early part of this year, slow first quarter in the villages, but things have picked up and now it's very normal. And I think this, if you take a line all the way across here, go from between 150 to 200, it's very much like a stock. Like, I think this is where we're going to be very normal. And I think that's what you're seeing overall. You start looking at the data, looking at over 150, 150 to 200 is very much a normal number of homes sold for the villages on MLS. If you look at the, 2018, everything was under 150. 2019, everything except for two months here, March and May, were basically, those 2 months were over 150. But if you look at it, after that, obviously 2021, almost every month was over 150 except for December. And then 2022, big impact because interest rates going up. The latter part of the year, we saw well below average numbers, like under 100, which we haven't seen. If you were to take a look at that, let's look at the 10-year numbers. We hadn't seen that in quite a while. Let's see, when was the last time we saw like under 100 numbers? We saw beginning of 2019. And pretty much 2016 numbers is what we're looking at. Like, we're seeing like 7 and 8 year lows late last year. But now, if you look at the current numbers, we're kind of back to, being around that 150 mark. That kind of gives you an idea that we're somewhat closer to a normalish marketplace. 155 is our September number, which, by the way, we've got our Q3 market reports in, the tangible numbers, which basically gives you an update and a comparison and kind of a real tangible copy of what's happening in the villages market. If you want a copy of that, you can connect either with me at 352-572-3796 or call the office at 352-753-7500, 352-753-7500. If you want a copy of a digital copy or a tangible copy, or just stop by many of our open houses that we have pretty much every day in and around the villages. So, right. So it gives you an idea of what we're looking at. Gives you a really good idea of number of sales, lots of stabilization going on. I think we're on a pretty good rock of stabilization in the villages. But let's take a look at one more thing, average sales price. What's happened to prices? Because right now we're seeing, we're looking at, inventory being very, very, very normal, very, very normal. Gone back to that number. Also, we're seeing number of actual sales come back to a normalish number. We've seen, spikes, but we're seeing more of a normal marketplace now. But let's look at average sales price, because sometimes prices kind of scare people. They're used to maybe seeing prices compared to, 7, 8 years ago. And I think that becomes an issue for sure. So let's take a look at average sales price. So we will look at this. This particular slide will tell us something, right? So typically 2013 through 2018, anywhere between 180 and 270 roughly, right? We saw, pretty much a 50% increase in average sales price, between 2013 and 2018. And then we're seeing, we're pretty much looking at an additional 50% increase, from 2019 to 2023. So if you were to take September, for example, 270,000 in September of 2019, and now going to 425, that's $150,000. It's more than a 50% increase in average sales price, right? So some people might say, well, we're going to come down to the $280,000 mark. I don't see that happening. And in fact, we have come off the peak of the 2022 September average sales price. Now, if you look at September of 2022, you may say, wait a second, Glenn, you were talking about things cooling off right around that time. And you probably can't tell from this chart, but In fact, what I'll do is let me narrow it down to past 12 months might help. Let's see what that looks like. Past 12 months chart, right? Bar chart, like lots of consistency here. Let me customize it and make it maybe last 2 years is what I'm going to do. So let's go back to 2021, January up until now, generate it. And, there's not much. You're seeing a little, you're seeing, going up here and then going down in 2022, going down even further. And then right into, this is like January, February of 2023 was the trough. And then once again goes up. Interestingly enough, January of 2022 is the trough here. Seeing the same thing, January, February of 21. Very typical to see average sales price be lower in those months, which is very paradoxical and very counterintuitive, because many people think, you know what, we're actually a very seasonal market. It used to be that way tremendously. So lots of paradoxes here. Lots of, nationwide, we're seeing decreases in inventory. We've seen a jump up in inventory locally, but it's stabilized this year about last couple of months. And then, of course, most people think that, the time to buy is, I think we're entering into that box of when to buy, which is probably, next 3-4 months between now or end of October now all the way to like January, February, because of based on what I just showed you, great time to buy if you're going to buy. I don't see big price decreases in 2 to 3 years. If you're thinking about selling, makes sense to maybe put your home on the market, maybe wait a couple of months and then, put it on the market, during probably February-ish, where we're starting to see a bump up there. But I'm going to tell you, look, we're really fortunate. We're in a great place, a great state where people are moving in our direction. We got more people moving in than moving out. 700 to 800 people a day in the whole state. People are still moving and wanting to retire. The weather is absolutely phenomenal. I'm actually literally sitting on my balcony and I'm outdoors, and it's the end of October. So it's just beautiful weather. I don't know, upper 70s, 80s, incredible weather. So if you have questions, Laura, you're super welcome. Shout out to Laura, longtime watcher. And, if you please like our video, that helps immensely. And of course, subscribe to our channel. You'll be notified anytime I do a market update, anything like that. But if you have questions, feel free to connect, put in the chat, or just call me, 352-572-3796, 352-572-3796, broker, Realty Executives. Be happy to connect, answer any questions, and hope everybody has just a great week.